Hi, I'm Lucy from Sew Essential, and today we're taking a closer look at the Husqvarna Amber Air S600, which is a combined overlocker and cover stitch machine, and one of a wide range of overlocker and cover stitch machines available to buy on our site sewessential.co.uk. At Sew Essential, we pride ourselves on using our expert knowledge to help you find the perfect machine for you. And that's why we've made this video, but we're also always here to support you by phone or email too. The Husqvarna Amber Air S600 is packed full of brilliant features to make your sewing even more fun, enjoyable and easy. It has jet air threading loopers so that you can thread the loopers at the touch of a button. It really is that simple, and I'll show you in the video. It has a colour touch screen which will give you a comprehensive list of all 26 different stitch combinations you can choose on this machine. Once you've selected a stitch, it will give you all the information you need to set the machine up for that chosen stitch. It has an exclusive sewing advisor, so you can even choose the type of fabric you're going to be working with, and the machine will automatically set the thread tension, differential feed and stitch length to suit the fabric that you've selected. It has a great work area. It's a really big work area, a great deal of space under the arm, and you can make that work area even bigger with the free extension table that's included when you purchase the machine from us. This makes working on big projects like coats or quilts so easy, and the space under the arm means it's easy to place decorative stitches in the middle of projects too. It has a free arm option so that you can sew in the round more easily, sewing cuffs on sleeves for example. You never have to worry about catching that bottom layer of fabric by accident. It has a knee lift so that you can raise and lower the presser foot using your knee and keep both hands on the fabric if you want real precision and accuracy and control. And it also has a speed control so that you can slow things right down when you want to if you're doing something more tricky, and then speed things right back up when you want to fly through a more simple task. I'll pop a link in the corner of the screen so you can take a closer look and purchase it on our website. Later in the video we'll have a look at what's in the box, but now let's get started by having a look at some of the most common stitches and those fantastic features so you can understand what this brilliant machine can do for you. So the first and one of the most exciting features on the Husqvarna Amber Air S600 that we're going to talk through is this amazing touchscreen facility. So we're quite used to seeing these on sewing machines, but it's really unusual to see them on an overlocker and cover stitch combined machine like this one. And in fact, this model and one FAF model are the only ones to have this facility on our website, and we have got an extensive range of overlockers and cover stitch machines on our site. I'll just talk you through how it works. So up at the top here, it tells you which stitch you've selected. Then if you want to select an alternative, you just hit the arrow button there, and it will give you a drop down menu, and it will display all 26 stitches that you can do on this machine. You can just scroll your way through that menu to choose whichever stitch you would like to sew. So that in itself is a great feature because it's lovely knowing that every single stitch combination is there. You're not going to miss any of them. There's not going to be a stitch that you've overlooked because you weren't aware of it. They're all listed there. Then if I choose an alternative stitch, it will take me through to this screen, and it gives me this great visual, a colourful diagram that shows me exactly how that stitch is going to be constructed and what it will look like. Then I can go into the next screen, and it will tell me things like whether I need to have my blade engaged, whether I need to adjust the presser foot pressure, whether I need to adjust the upper looper setting, and all of this information is expanded on in the printed extensive manual that you receive with the machine. Then if we go into the next screen, it just gives us an overview of what this stitch is usually used for. So that's really helpful as well when you're trying to choose different stitches and you've got a particular job in mind. It will help you and give you information around that. Then we can close that screen and we're back to the home screen, And again, we've got a clear visual here of what we're going to be stitching out. Then it tells us what size needle to use. It also tells us which needle positions to use. So the 2 needles at the back are the overlocker needles, and the 3 needles at the front are the cover stitch needles. And you can see here that the machine is telling us to use the left overlocker needle and the centre cover stitch needle. It also gives us the cutting width here, and then onto this really exciting feature, the sewing advisor. So here we can choose whichever type of fabric we're going to work with so that the machine can set itself to produce the best results for that type of fabric. So you choose from lightweight woven, medium weight or heavyweight woven, and then you've also got options for knit fabrics there as well. So that is a fantastic feature because you're telling the machine this is the fabric I'm going to be working with, and the machine then sets itself up to produce the most suitable results for that particular weight of fabric. Here we've got the option to adjust the tension, so you can adjust the tension on the different needle threads or the looper threads. You just select whichever one you want to adjust and increase or decrease the tension. The machine will set the tension for you based on your selection of the fabric type, but there might be times when you want to override that for some reason. You decide you'd like to just tweak it a little bit, and you've got those options there. Down here, this is the speed that we're going to be sewing at. So if we want to slow things down, if we're doing something a bit tricky, we want to take our time, we don't want the machine to run away with us, you can slow that speed right down. And then when you're doing something nice and simple and you want to fly through it, you can put it right back up again. Here you've got the option to adjust your differential feed. So if you want to gather your fabric, perhaps you might want to increase that differential feed. And then equally, if you want to stretch your fabric as you sew it, perhaps you want to create a lettuce edge or something similar, you can decrease that differential feed. And then finally here, you've got the option to increase or decrease your stitch length as well. If we take a look at these buttons that run down the side of the touchscreen, at the top we've got the option to load a saved stitch. So if we use this button beneath it, we can actually save a stitch. So if you select a stitch and then you decide you want to adjust perhaps the stitch length, or you want to adjust the differential feed, or perhaps you want to adjust some of the tensions, if you've got it just right and you're really happy with that particular stitch for that particular fabric, for example, you can then choose to save that stitch, and you can even give it a name as well. You've got a keypad that will come up to give you the option to type in a name for that particular stitch. Then if you want to load that stitch at a later date, you can press this button and it will bring your save stitches up, and you can save up to 30 stitches on this machine. If you want to delete a save stitch because you're not going to be using it again, you just hit this button here. And then we've got the settings button here, which just gives you some very basic settings, but this is where you can calibrate the touch screen so that it recognises your touch. And then if we hit the I button at the bottom, this will shortcut straight through to that lovely colourful visual, and then that additional information about whether you need your blade up or whether you need to reduce your presser foot pressure. It'll bring all of that information up for you, and the overview of what the stitch is used for just by hitting that I button there. Once you've chosen the stitch that you want to sew, we need to start by threading the machine. So first of all, we just need to add the thread stand to the machine, and this just slots in at the back, and then you pull it towards the left and it will click into place like so. And then on your spool pins, you've got thread cone holders that you can slide on to secure your threads. There's lots of different accessories. We'll have a look at those later in the video, but you get everything you need to set the machine up. And then you also insert your telescopic thread guide. That just inserts into that thread stand, and then you extend that up when you're threading the machine. But just for the purposes of this video, so that you can see what's going on, I'm just going to keep it at the lowest position, and then I'll extend it out of shot. So we just start by placing a reel of thread onto the relevant thread stand, and then take your thread from the back through the guide, the metal guide, to the front. And as I say, normally you would have that extended out of shot, but I just did that at that lower level so that you could see what I was doing. And then the next thing is to click the thread into the thread guides on the top here. Now the first thing you want to do before you go ahead and do that, you just need to use the lever on the right hand side of the machine to make sure that your presser foot is lifted. Your presser foot should always be lifted when you're threading a machine, because this opens all the tension discs. So to insert the thread into that thread guide, we just bring it from right to left, and you'll hear and feel it click into place. And then we take it down the front of the machine, and I'll continue to thread it and show you that as a close-up. So we've got the thread coming down the front of the machine here. You just want to pass it behind the metal thread guide here, underneath the touch screen, and then through the thread guide here to the right of the take-up lever, and it tells you in the manual which channel to pass the thread through the take-up lever, making sure it's pushed right to the back. And then for the left needle, it says to pass it through the second guide here, and then behind the thread guide in front of the needle bar. And then in the manual it says to pass the left needle thread through the third groove, so you can just use your tweezers to manoeuvre that through the third groove like so, and then pass it behind the guide here on the overlocker needles, because those are the needles that we're using. And then I'm just going to cut that thread a little bit shorter so that I don't get it tangled, because now I'm going to go ahead and thread the needle. And you do get a manual needle threader with this machine. If you struggle to do it by eye like I'm doing, you can use your manual needle threader. You just slide it down the front of the needle and push, and it'll push the thread from the front to the back through the eye of the needle. And there we have it. We have our left needle threaded now. And then we just repeat the process with the right needle thread, but we'll come down the next channel along for the right needle thread. So we'll come down here along, and again in the manual it's very detailed. It'll tell you which guides to go through, which slots to go through, here, here and here, and you just repeat the process to thread that right needle. Next we're going to thread the loopers, and this is another super exciting feature of this machine which is available to purchase on our site. You'll find links to it below, but you've got air threading on this machine, and it's push button electronic air threading, which is my favourite kind. So in order to engage that, you just have to slide this lever across. We're in sewing mode at the moment. We're going to slide that across to threading mode, and then if I turn the hand wheel towards me, you will see these pipes here will click into place and engage, which will enable us to use the air threading. So I'll just turn that towards me and wait for the click. There we go. We can see all of those loopers are connected now. And then all I need to do, I've put my thread behind the metal thread guide here. I've gone through the telescopic thread guide in the same way as I did for the needles. And then I just insert a bit of thread into that threading port, press the button here, and you can see my upper looper is threaded. It is just so easy. And you can actually thread all three loopers, the upper, lower and cover stitch looper, at the same time. If you insert the thread into the relevant ports and press the button, it will thread all three at the same time for you. It is just a dream to use. So I'm just going to repeat the process again with the lower looper. So I've got the thread going behind the relevant thread guide. You'll notice as well that the threading paths are all colour coded to make it really easy for you to follow as well. And there are instructions inside the front cover as well for threading the loopers, plus a stitch chart showing you all 26 stitches. But let's just insert some thread into that looper port again, and then press the button. And you can see my lower looper and my upper looper are threaded, and I've threaded my left and my right needle. So we are now ready to sew that 4 thread overlocking stitch. So to start sewing our 4-thread overlocking stitch, we just need to slide the lever across to sewing mode, and that just releases those looper pipes and just means the machine can move nice and freely. And then we close the front cover, and I'm going to lower my presser foot. And when you raise or lower your presser foot, you will hear the machine make a noise. It's just calibrating and setting itself up ready for the stitch. And then we can go ahead and sew those first lovely stitches. And I can just use the thread cutter on the side of the machine to cut those threads, and you can see we've got a lovely balanced neat overlocking stitch there. That is just gorgeous. We've got the left needle in orange, the right needle in blue, the upper looper in red, and then you've got your lower looper in green there. So a lovely neat balanced stitch. Now I'm going to show you a 3-thread overlocking stitch, but before I do that I just want to point out a few things on the machine. So one of the things I really like is that on the front cover here you've got markings for seam allowances. So very often on overlockers you'll have lines there, but they won't have the numbers for the seam allowances that they correspond to, and you have to remember or measure all the time. But on the Amber A you've got your 3/8, half an inch, 5/8 of an inch and 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch markings here on the front cover. So I just find that really helpful and useful. You've also got an incredibly bright light on this machine, so it gives you a really lovely clear visibility of your work area, and you've got a nice big work area as well. You've got a lot of space here to the left of the needle, but you've also got quite a lot of space for an overlocker, well, very generous space actually under the arm of the machine as well. So all of those things are just great features of this machine in my opinion. Now to go from sewing a 4-thread overlocking stitch to a 3-thread overlocking stitch, all you need to do is remove your left needle and your left needle thread. That's to do a narrow 3-thread overlocking stitch. You can do a wide 3-thread overlocking stitch where you use the left needle, but I'm doing a narrow one where I'm using the right needle. And one thing I will say about this machine is make sure you do remove the needle that you're not using. Sometimes it can be tempting to leave that in, but you do need to remove that for the stitch to work properly. So let's go ahead now and sew this 3-thread overlocking stitch, which I really like to use on more delicate fabrics like cotton lawns or linens and things like that. When I'm working with those, I just think it's a more delicate stitch that's more suited to those more delicate fabrics. I wouldn't generally use this as a construction seam. I'd always use my 4-thread overlocking stitch for that, or perhaps my 5-thread safety stitch. But just for finishing seams and that sort of thing, this is a really nice delicate stitch. So let's go ahead and sew it now. So you can see there we've got this lovely, delicate, neat 3-thread overlocking stitch. It's just so pretty. I do love it for those lighter weight fabrics. And then just comparing it to the 4-thread overlocking stitch that we did previously. And like I say, it's just so easy to convert between those two stitches. Just remove that left or right needle and the thread. Take the thread off the thread stand as well, just to make sure it doesn't accidentally get tangled with any of the other threads. But you can see there two super neat, lovely stitches. So this time, instead of having the left needle as well, we've just got the right needle there, the upper looper thread, and then on the wrong side we've got the lower looper thread, and it's just a really pretty, neat stitch. Another incredibly popular stitch that can be used is the 3-thread rolled edge, and this is a really lovely decorative way to finish the edge of your fabric. So it's often used on things like chiffon scarves, fabrics like satins, lighter weight fabrics where you want a nice pretty decorative finish to them. So an example of where I've used this stitch before is on a ruffle on a blouse. The pattern suggested a narrow hem, and I thought, well, that's going to be a bit bulky actually, and using a rolled edge was a much prettier way of finishing it. So to switch and convert from a 3-thread overlocking stitch, which we previously did, to a 3-thread rolled edge, I can just move this lever forwards from normal to R for rolled, and that affects your stitch finger on the machine so that the thread wraps around the edge of the fabric and creates this lovely decorative finish. While we're looking at these controls as well, I just want to mention the precision thread control here. You can adjust this up or down in case you want to increase the width of your looper threads or decrease them. So if you think they're not going quite wide enough to catch the edge of the fabric and you feel like they're a little bit tight, you can push that up towards the plus and increase that. Or if you feel that they're overhanging the edge of the fabric too much and they're too loose, you can reduce it down and decrease it. And it's on a sliding scale, so you can make very, very minimal adjustments there. But let's have a go now at the 3-thread rolled edge and see this lovely decorative stitch. Okay, so you can see there, it's just given us this lovely, lovely, neat finish to the edge of the fabric. It's so neat. And I'll just show you the other side there. Just a really lovely way to finish those edges. You can also use woolly nylon, which will fill those stitches in even more. And I'll just show you that in comparison to the 3-thread overlocking stitch. You can see there, it has got that lovely rolled effect thanks to moving the lever to the R position, and it's just a really lovely decorative finish. I mentioned in the previous clip about the precise thread control dial here, where you can increase or decrease the width of the loops created by the looper threads, but you've also got a cutting width dial here that you can use as well. You just line up whichever width you want with the red marking here to select that. So again, if you remember, it will tell you on the screen, on the touch screen, which width this should be for the relevant stitch that you've chosen. You just use this dial, you just turn it to select the relevant one, lining the relevant number up with that red marking so that you've got all your settings right on the machine for the relevant stitch. So we've sewn some of the most popular overlocking stitches. Remember, there are 26 different stitch combinations in total for this machine. But before we convert it to a cover stitch, so I can show you that, I just wanted to mention that you do get a lovely large trim trap free with the Amber Air S600 when you purchase it from us. And this just helps you keep your work area lovely and tidy when you are overlocking and you're trimming excess fabric off. So if I go ahead now and just sew another rolled edge and we trim that excess fabric off, you'll see that it's caught in the trim trap. So you can see there, rather than ending up on the floor or on the table and creating a mess for me to tidy up later, all of those bits of excess fabric will be caught neatly in the trim trap. So it just helps you to keep your work area lovely and neat and tidy. Now I'm going to show you how to convert the machine from an overlocker to a cover stitch mode. So first of all, I'm just going to remove the trim trap off the front of the machine and then slide the front cover open. And the first thing we need to do is to disengage the blade, because we won't be using that when we're using a cover stitch. So you just make sure it's in the highest position and then pull this lever out and turn it, and it will click into place so that it is now deactivated. The next thing we need to do is set the stitch finger to R, which we've already done because we were doing a rolled hem previously. So this just slides between N and R, so we've got it on R. If we've got needles in A or B, which are the overlocker needles, we just need to remove those and then bring them forward into the cover stitch needle bar. So you do get a handy little tool with the Amber Air 600. You get, this is a needle threader, but it's also got a little hole in the end there, which is great for just sliding under those needles. and when you're removing them or inserting them, it just means you won't drop it into the machine. So you just hold the needle like so, use the screwdriver that comes with the machine just to loosen your grub screw there, and then you're able to remove that needle, and then we'll insert it into one of the cover stitch needle points. I'm not going to do all of the needles for you, I'm not going to bore you by inserting 3 needles, but I've just shown you how to do one, how you just bring it forward. I'd probably just tighten that grub screw back up a little bit. You never want to over tighten those, but equally you don't want to leave them so loose they're going to drop into the machine when you're sewing. So yeah, that's how you move your needles forward, and then I would just insert another one in C and D if I wanted to do a triple cover stitch, or I could just insert one in C. We'll see which stitch we do first, but I should do that later rather than you having to watch me do all 3 needles. And then we also need to deactivate the upper looper. So this is the upper looper here, and to deactivate it, I'm just going to turn the hand wheel towards me until it's at its lowest position. And once it's at its lowest position, I'm just going to slide this across from A to B, and that will now keep that down. Even if I turn the hand wheel, that upper looper won't come up. So that's where it needs to be. And then we need to replace this table, this cutter table here. We just push down and release that, and then we replace it with the cover stitch table, which just slots into place in exactly the same way. So you'll just find it really easy to just slot that into the relevant guides, and then you're able to bring the front cover up and close it. Obviously we've then got to thread the machine, and I'll take you through that, so you would be opening up that front cover again, but that's how you set up ready for a cover stitch. Now I'm going to thread the needles for a triple cover stitch. So I've made sure that the machine is in threading mode. I've clicked those pipes into position by switching it from sewing to threading mode and turning the hand wheel towards me like we demonstrated when we looked at setting up for an overlocking stitch. I've also raised my presser foot to make sure the tension discs are open, and I've selected a triple cover stitch on the menu here, so I've got all the information I need there for setting up the stitch. And I can also hit the info button just to get that lovely visual of what it's going to look like and what I need to thread. And then in terms of threading the needles for a cover stitch, up at the top of the machine it's the same process. We're going through the telescopic thread guide, we're clicking the thread through the thread guide on top of the machine, bring it down the relevant channel, and then we're going to go through the guide under there, across, through the guide just here to the right of the take up lever, and for the left needle you want to be going through the guide at the back, closest to the back of the machine, through the first guide here, and then we're going to bring it under the thread guide on the front of the needle bar, and then we just want to bring that thread across to the first guide for the left needle. You want it to be on the furthest left guide, and then we can just pass the thread through the eye of the needle. You have got that needle threader that you can use if you want to. I'm choosing to just do it by eye, and that is your left needle threaded for that triple cover stitch. And then I'm not going to show you me threading each needle, but the centre needle will be threaded in the same way, so you'll bring it down the relevant thread path under here, it will go through the middle guide here, the next guide along here, and the next guide along there. And then for the right needle it will be the same process, and it will go through the front guide here, the next guide along here, and the next guide along here, and then we'll take a look at the looper threading. Now we're going to thread the cover stitch looper, so it's exactly the same process as for the upper and lower loopers for the overlocking stitches. We've got the thread going through the telescopic thread guide at the top of the machine. It's clicked into the thread guide on the top of the machine. I've got my foot up so that the thread is going through those tension discs, and it's denoted by the purple thread path to make things nice and easy. Like we did for the overlocker loopers, just make sure the thread goes behind the little metal guide at the front here, and then you insert some thread into that threading port. Got a bit of a curly thread end there, but just insert that thread into the threading port, press the button, and you can see your cover stitch looper is now threaded. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew that lovely triple cover stitch. This is one of my favourite stitches. So I'll just lower the presser foot and away we go. And then I'm stopping before I reach the end. You can't chain off on this machine on the cover stitch. Just pull the fabric to the back like so. Cut it off using your thread cutter. And there you can see 3 gorgeous, neat, parallel lines of stitches. And then on the wrong side, we've just got this beautiful, beautiful cover stitch. I just love it. And what I actually choose to do on a lot of my garments is to use that as a decorative stitch on the right side of the garment rather than on the wrong side of the garment. And on the Amber Air 600, which you can purchase on our website, I'll put links below for you, there is quite a big work area here compared to lots of other cover stitch and overlocker machines. So what you can do if you're making activewear and things like that, you've got the option to actually place some of these lovely decorative stitches along a princess seam perhaps, or in the middle of a garment, because you've got the room here to manoeuvre the fabric under the arm of the machine. So that's another advantage of this lovely Husqvarna Amber Air S600. I just want to talk about a couple of other features on this machine that I absolutely love. Firstly, the fact that you can create a free arm or flatbed by removing this piece. So here, it just makes sewing in the round so much easier, being able to do that. If you're sewing a cuff, for example, on a sleeve, you can slide that over the end like so, and you don't run the risk of accidentally catching that bottom layer of fabric. So really, really useful feature to have. Once you've removed that, you've also got the option to attach the free extension table, which is included when you purchase the machine from us. And this creates an even bigger work area than the one you already had. So if you're working on a bigger project, like a quilt, for example, or a coat, you've got so much more support for that fabric there, which is just brilliant. Then you've also got easy release presser feet. So to release the presser foot, you just press the red button on the back of the ankle and that will drop the foot off. And then to replace it, you just lower the presser foot down and it will clip back into place. And it's great that that's a really easy thing to do, because the options for feet with this machine are just absolutely brilliant. You can choose from things like a corded wavy edge foot, an elastic foot, a blind hem and lace foot, a piping foot, a beading foot, a gathering foot. The list goes on and on and on. And that is one of the things I love about Husqvarna machines. I have a Husqvarna sewing machine myself, and the optional accessories that you can buy with them to really try some specialist techniques are just so varied. So I'm just going to lower the presser foot now and show you that will just then click back into position like so. And then if I raise the presser foot, it's now attached to the machine again. While we're on the subject of presser feet, I just want to mention that you have got extra presser foot lift with this machine. So if I raise the presser foot to the normal level, like so, if I raise it again, you'll see that we can create extra space between the needle plate and the bottom of the foot. So I can lift it and create extra room. And that's just really helpful for when you're doing things like working with thicker or heavier weight fabrics. It just makes it easier to get them underneath the foot. One last feature I want to talk through is the ability to adjust your presser foot pressure. So normally you will want it set a lot of the time on N for standard, but if you're working with a particularly thick fabric, you might want to reduce that pressure by just turning the dial down to the lower numbers. And then you might want to increase it if you're working with a fine fabric, and you can just turn it round to those higher numbers like so. So it's just on the side of the machine, really simple and easy to do. And you do get recommendations for the presser foot pressure on the touch screen as well when you select your stitch. So if you're impressed with all the brilliant features on this fantastic machine and you'd like to take a closer look, click the link to our website where you can take a closer look and purchase the machine there. In the box you'll find everything you would expect: a detailed printed instruction manual and a quick reference guide. the power lead, the foot control, the free trim trap, the free extension table, the knee lift. Then you'll find things like tweezers, a screwdriver, an Allen key, some thread nets, some spool caps, a spare upper blade. You'll also get a handy little accessory case which stores things like the spare needles, and you'll also find your stylus hidden away inside the front cover too, and that just helps with using the touch screen. And then if you want to take your sewing even further, there is an incredibly wide range of feet and accessories available to purchase for this machine separately too. So you might want to buy a beading foot or an elastic foot, a gathering foot, a piping foot. There are so many to choose from, and they're all available on our website. Just look for the Husqvarna overlocker and cover stitch accessories, and if you need any help choosing at all, don't hesitate to ask, because that's what we're here for. I've given you a really good overview of the Husqvarna Amber Air S600, but if I've left any of your questions unanswered, don't hesitate to get in contact. We're always very happy to help. All of our machines come with a full manufacturer's warranty, so that's 5 years with this one, 2 years for parts and labour, and then a further 3 years for parts. So in the unlikely event that you have a problem, don't hesitate to get in contact. Very often we can resolve many issues over the phone, but if that's not the case, we'll collect the machine and do everything for you. We offer the best prices, but if you do see this machine cheaper anywhere else, don't hesitate to get in contact and we'll be happy to help. Your machine will be delivered the next working day, free of charge, by courier, with a dedicated 1 hour time slot, so you know exactly when that happy post is going to arrive. I hope you're feeling super excited about your new machine. Thanks for watching.